Okay. Okay, I feel so fucking ugly right now. I literally got ready to make this video talking about like this subject because I feel like I looked so fucking ugly in the video we're responding to where I was going off sounding like a feminist, and I think I actually felt even more unattractive. Like when I heard myself back, like bitch about, people saying the word female instead of woman, whatever. You didn't respond to the like last part of my video where I was kind of like, I actually don't care, but I do. Like it is a good talking point, but like initially I just want to say first and foremost, like to me, there are definitely like because people could be like words don't hurt anyone, and that I think is bullshit. Like obviously words, like people have freedom of speech, so like we're all protected with it, and that with that we could honestly say whatever the fuck we want. There are definitely words that I think are used in a very aggressive way that has a lot of like historic and like cultural trauma behind. We don't have to talk about what those words are because it's like they are like actual slurs. They're actually derogatory words like bitch, cunt, hoe. Like that is an obvious one. So I was talking about nuance, whatever. I wanted to touch on first I wanted to touch on the first part. Okay, so something that I've noticed is because I am a woman and you are a guy, like there are things that like I know I generalize men all the time in my videos. Like for me, it's easier to say some men, or it's easier to say just men instead of some men. Because for me, like I I think the reason why I was so heated in that video was not because I was just like mad because I'm like an SJW. I was actually having interactions with I feel so fucking ugly. I was having interactions with people like on Reddit who were being really condescending, who I could tell were like edge lords, but not trolls. Because like you were saying like, oh, you should have been on the internet in 2003. Like I have been on the internet since I was like 5 years old. Like the first website I ever went on was a fucking like HTML. Like it wouldn't even work today. Like, and yeah, I remember comments being just absurd. Like even if you go now and you go on like Wayback Machine and you go to like tabloid like website comments, just the horrible shit people write. So that's why I could understand like millennials. I don't know if you're a millennial or Gen X or even I think Gen X and millennials have more of a similar like cultural mindset in terms of like what we grew up watching, like the syntax we use, the humor. Boomers are different, but it's like we are different than Gen Z, who seems to be um who seems to be like creating the narrative of like our social fabric right now. And that's why we're seeing a lot more of these conversations of like, oh, these microaggressions. Because I would say saying the word female is a microaggression because it's like you can't put your finger on it. And even you said, yeah, like when you say females to describe something in a concise, clinical way, whatever. But what I wanted to touch on was that I keep lumping in incels and red pill and like these communities, and I'm conflating them when you're saying that it's like they're not mutually exclusive. Um, Here's the thing, and like I said, I'm a woman with the woman experience. You're a man, female experience, male experience. So we're not always going to be able to 100% empathize. Like I understand on a granular level, yes, the pills, the hierarchies, the terminologies, like maybe the rules and the constructs of each group of people. But the way I see it is it's men. Like you affirmed my point, and it's something like we're not looking to you to see if you're smart, stupid. We're just like, is she hot? Yes. Okay, cool. That is honestly like one of the biggest. I've mentioned this in a video before, and I know saying it is going to be redundant because it's like if I look hot, you're going to care about what I say. I could be saying the same thing and look like shit, and it won't matter. So that in itself makes me realize that my worth as a human, because women, we're all just kind of trying to like there is some kind of imposter syndrome behind this whole feminism bullshit where it's like girl power, girl boss, like oh, like movies where girls literally beat up like a group of men. It's like that's not realistic. Like it's like now we're playing out like our fanfic of empowered women but who are still wanted and who have like I know the feminist sphere could be delusional, where it's like a tough bitch who is like, who has like, I don't know, I'm not gonna get into it, but it's like, yeah, there's definitely like extremes of delusions when it comes to like your identity and what, like if you're like, oh, I don't see it myself as anything but a woman, so I have to like lean into like feminism, like I have to lean into like getting mad at every man and not just being able to accept the paradigms in our society that will always exist, and if you keep trying to push back on it. But on a social level, like we are no longer in a place where it's like we did have a point in history where people who weren't of a certain kind, whether it's racially, class, gender, things that are identifiable that weren't like, it wasn't equal. So it's like, yes, women, we all know this. This isn't fucking hard. Even in the world today, women are still being like fucking like shit isn't all good for women yet. So it's like for me to be a privileged woman in the Western society where I am in relative safety in general, like it's whatever. Like I don't have to make a big deal about women's issues because it doesn't directly affect me. But when I look at it on a broader scope and I'm like, oh well, there is actually still like huge violations of human rights, and not just with women, but like people, it's not just a woman thing, but we're going to talk about the woman thing right now, where it's like, okay, so you're saying that men only care if a woman's attractive. That's where it's like, because I mentioned hypergamy once, and in my head, I was like, my version of hypergamy for men was like always looking for the hotter woman. It wasn't like, but that is an issue where just biologically, just socially, men have all the freedom, and this is turning into a different conversation, but it'll tie in. But men have like the freedom to get to explore like who they are beyond their sex. Like their sex, their gender, their masculinity isn't like a deterrent. Ew, can you see my dentures? It's not like a deterrent on a social level. You know what I mean? No one's gonna be like, oh, it's a man, don't hear him talk. Like the only time a guy would feel that is if he's like the only guy in a woman's space, in a female space. See, even I'll say female, and it's like I don't feel bad about saying female to a woman. Like when you say it like that, where it's like being concise, and that's what like that isn't a microaggression in my opinion. But other people might think I'm being bigoted right now for the cause I'm trying to defend. So that's the thing. But yeah, it's like I was like, the only reason I interchange these things, like I totally get men care about women's looks, women care about men's looks, but not to the same extent. And that is already kind of constricting as a woman, because it's like, it won't matter, because it's like, I think you're an intellectual person, the person I'm responding to, Epsilon Reviews, follow him. I'm responding to someone who I think is an intellectual person, empathetic, a smart dude, but even his lizard brain goes to like, look, if you're hot, like, yeah, the halo effect is real. And it's way realer with a woman, and that is constricting. So I guess it's like the whole getting caught up about being called a female, it just comes more with the territory of being like, we're still property of, I know it sounds crazy in this like triangulation or whatever pathway I'm going down, it could sound completely absurd, and it's where it's coming from. I guess, okay. I'm a paranoid person, so my brain goes down like ruminating spirals that like for me, I know this is gonna sound fucking crazy, but like, okay, if I were to be like the only girl, let's say I was hot and fuckable, like, you know what I mean? Because I know there's also this whole notion, which I mentioned before in another video, where it's like also this weird thing where it's like if a girl isn't fuckable and rapeable, then she's like worthless. So it's like a fucked up insult you can tell a woman is like, you're too ugly to rape, and it'll totally mind fuck a person who hears that, usually a woman, because it's like, oh wow, like am I supposed to, like, now it's like I have to choose between being ugly and safe or being attractive and wanted and desirable but being unsafe. So like, okay, if I were in a group of if I was in a group of people, like hanging out with a group of people, it was just me and a bunch of guys, right? And I heard one of them say female in a way that made me uncomfortable. Because it's like I said, context. When you said female, when you were talking, like when you said female to be like, oh, I was describing like, or my the person I was working with who was a woman was referring to like a group of people in the army, which is like the army dehumanizes humans, doesn't it? I mean, like they kind of make you like an object of terror and defense, right? Like I'm not this isn't about the like you kind I mean they break you down, right, in the army, so you don't have like I mean it's a fucked up thing in general, so I could definitely see how like in sports in spaces where you are being seen professionally and you are being seen in a way that isn't humanizing because you are an agent of currency, like the professionalism warrants the ability to say that. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to explain, but it's like yes, that's why when a doctor says female or male, it's like an identifying characteristic, and it's in the context it makes sense. Like it would make sense coming from like a drill sergeant to be like the female I don't yeah, like because they're already yelling at you anyway, so it's like but imagine being like at a I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not even the right person because I feel it intuitively, and I should have probably because when I think it out and I write it out, I could like with historical context, with social context, actually articulate the point I'm trying to make because it's not just to be petty. It's not, and like I said, you know, to me, I'm more annoyed by patronization and microaggressions and passive aggressiveness. That stuff bothers me. So I think what bothers me and a lot of women about female, more so than even bitch or hoe, is because it's kind of passive aggressive. And because it could so easily be interchangeable in a setting, in a context where it's not offensive or microaggressive. And that's always like a good arguing point or loophole for people who want to be contrarian more than anything. Like, I think if we were with like, you know, if you're just a cool dude and you weren't misogynistic and you were just like an empath, period, and you didn't have like these social constructs about gender and stuff in your brain, and it was like a girl, you, and then like two guys, and you're getting a weird feeling about these guys, and you just don't quite put a grasp on it. And then you're at the mall and they're like, oh man, those females. Well, even that is like, I don't know. Dude, it's so weird because usually when you hear it, it's like, I don't know. Fine, I'm wrong. I just think it's like if you are ever in a position and you feel weird about something, like maybe I'm not the right girl to defend this point. I just, like I said, I was arguing with people on Reddit and I was able to dunk on them because they were being just like really, I keep saying the word obtuse, but like a synonym of obtuse. They're just being really like, stubborn. And they're allowed to feel, but it's like I could tell that they just wanted to, like, they were just mad that they were like getting Karen'd all over. You know what I mean? No one likes a Karen. So when a lot of us, you know, start talking about these things, it can be a little uncomfortable because there isn't a lot of men who honestly will step up and be like, no, I do get it, because he can't get it because it's like a very nuanced aspect of the female experience. Like, unless maybe it's like a kid who's been surrounded by a lot of like femininity, where it's like they've seen firsthand like like, you know, maybe if you've seen like an abusive relationship where the woman's battered, or you know what I mean, like you get more of an insight as to the actual like complete power imbalance in every level between a man and a woman. And it's like I think women are just like, we're low key being like, please just like help us feel more safe, like please. I personally haven't had a very traumatizing experience like in terms of like assault, or like I'm pretty much, I feel pretty lucky up to this point in my life that I've been mainly in control of my situations with men. And I'm thankful for that, because I think that's why I'm able to be clear-headed and try to be like fair and objective. But I have seen and I have witnessed and I have like empathized with trauma, that a lot of it has to do with like generational constructs in which misogyny was the norm. And when I say, and I get it, misogyny, racism, like it has been kind of reduced to just people being assholes. I still think it's like those same people who have that intention now, if they had the ability to be openly like racist and sexist to the extent where it could actually cause severe damage, they would, because it's about the mindset. Like, I don't think in any point in history, me knowing who I am, I would have ever been cool with like slavery or women, openly being nothing but homemakers. I don't know what I'm trying to say. And I don't know if is it fucked up to keep conflating gender politics with race politics or whatever, because there is an intersectionality with that. And I think it's like, I don't know if it's my place to say, but I'm just saying, I don't think there's ever a point in time where something that to me is just fucked up, I would have been okay with, regardless of like, what society deemed being like okay and normal. This kind of went off on a tangent, but yeah, just to like put a bow on it, because this was very improvised. I understand I'm conflating things where a man would be like, wait, like incels aren't the same as red pillars. Hypergamy doesn't just mean like, because I thought hypergamy in my head was just like whatever is assigned to your circumstance, what you like yeah, women don't like we look more for security in a man, more than looks. I mean, looks are important, but I think the older we get or the more mature we get, like we as women, we want to feel safe and comfortable, and we don't want to feel like we're competing with others. And I think we would sacrifice like being with a Chad for being with someone who makes us feel secure in ourselves, right? Because I've seen so many hot girls with ugly guys who aren't even rich. They just give them that, like, they just make them feel good about themselves. Men just want hot chicks, right? Like the most successful men, the men with the most money, are always dating very young, beautiful women. And that's not a coincidence. It's because no matter who you are, no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how smart you are, all successful men want hot women, right? And there are a lot of hot women who are smart, funny, and it is competitive for us. Just like there's competitiveness amongst men for women, there is a competitiveness amongst women. It's probably even more competitive since guys are so binary in their thinking of what is actually hot. Like they might settle for like, different women because they want sex, but I know guys are like, they want the hottest chick. I don't think girls want the hottest dude. So when I was saying hypergamy, I meant like, yeah, guys are just shallow. But women are shallow too, because the hypergamous aspect of women is shallow. It's like, so it is both shallow. I guess just the actual terminology, just like, literature wise or whatever, like, yeah, there is a definition for hypergamy, but I think it's like under a broader scope of like natural selection. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent. Bye.